Thanks for tuning in today. I'm joined by attorney Kris Graham of the law offices of Graham and Borgese, a consumer debt defense law firm serving both New York and New Jersey. Thanks for being here, Kris.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
So, consumer debt defense. Why don't you tell our listeners what that area of law encompasses and how exactly you help consumers who are dealing with debt-related issues?
Sure, Joe. Basically, it encompasses anything that is debt-related, so it could be anything from normal consumer credit card debt to student loans. We also help people who have repossessed vehicles and business debt even. For example, there's many people that have small businesses that, that have failed or are floundering and need help with dealing with vendors or other creditors or banks. So basically anything that has to do with credit and with, consumer debt.
Okay. Now, when I hear the word attorney, my first thoughts are extremely high hourly rates, excessive fees. No offense, Kris.
Sure.
But those are just some of the things that come to people's minds. So for someone in debt who may think the same way, that could be a deterrent to them even considering calling an attorney to help with their debt problems. So what would you say to someone who thinks that they can't afford to hire a debt defense attorney such as yourself?
I can say that I've never had somebody not use our services because of our fees. So we're very flexible, and we understand that we're helping people who already have financial issues. So certainly adding legal fees onto that is going to make it even more burdensome. So we've definitely developed strategies to make it so that these things are spread out. We take payment plans. A lot of times we're able to postpone payments to the creditors so that our fees can be paid first, so you're not double paying anybody or paying two people at the same time. And quite honestly, we do just have lower fees than most attorneys do because of the nature of what we're doing. And, I think that we really try our best to help the person and put them in a better position than they were before they met us.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that would be a relief to a lot of people. It sounds like you guys go out of your way to really make it as easy as possible and as affordable as possible for someone looking to rectify their financial situation. So, So, I was looking through your website. I think you may have mentioned it when you discussed consumer debt defense and what you guys handle. But on your website, I see that you guys settle debt for people, so debt settlement services. Now, I've heard and seen just a bunch of commercials on the TV or radio from big companies who claim to be able to settle someone's debt for, fast and for little money. So that being the case, what makes you different? Why should someone call your firm instead of calling one of these maybe more well-known national debt settlement companies?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, usually if it's too good to be true or sounds too good to be true, that's usually not true, right? And I think that a lot of times they tell people, 1 month low monthly fee and we'll take care of everything and it'll all be, resolved, which, I'm not saying that can't happen sometimes, but, a lot of times it doesn't. And a lot of times that people call me, they're calling me after they've already tried one of these debt consolidation companies. I think one of the first things that separates us, obviously, is the fact that we're not a debt consolidation company, right? We're a law firm, we're lawyers, and we're actually not a debt consolidation company at all. So we do handle the same issues, resolving debt, settling debt, but we do it very differently. For example, our fees are different. Usually debt consolidation companies will charge people a percentage of the fee of all the debt, right? So if you come to them and you have, $100,000 in debt, they range typically between 20 and 30%. So their fees are between $20,000 and $30,000 to handle that debt. Now, if they could settle all the debt for 50%, then you still are making out. Of course, you're still paying less than $100,000 by the time everything's settled.
Sure.
But $20,000 to $30,000 is quite a bit of money, and they want that up front. That's another issue I think that we're into.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Front. Yeah, no, most people don't. And quite honestly, their billing practices are so confusing that most people, when you ask them, what do you pay these people and what debts have you settled and how much has been paid, they really can't tell you because they're just paying one fee every month. And they don't really know out of that fee, what's allocated to what, what's the fee, what's the amount that actually got paid towards a creditor, what creditors have been paid. Like, none of those things are really clear. And I think that's probably maybe purposeful, because it just, then you're not really aware of what you're paying anybody.
Sure, exactly, yeah. You're just, okay, and then, so I assume then that obviously your process is different. In fact, I think I also read on your website in one of your blogs that you actually tell people up front what your fees are going to be, so they know right away what they are going to owe you and what they're going to have to then, after you've settled their debt, they'll know the two different prices. This is what I owe the company, and then this is what I'm going to pay you. So it seems to be that your process is just much more straightforward and much more clear for the consumer.
It's very transparent because, first of all, number one, we don't actually handle our clients' money at all. So once we settle the debt for you, like let's say with Citibank or somebody like that, then the monthly payments would actually be paid by you directly to them. It doesn't go through us at all. So you know exactly how much money you've paid out to Citibank at the end of the day, right? Because you've actually paid it yourself. And then as far as our fees go, I think the really big difference is that we charge a flat fee plus a percentage of what we save you. So instead of charging you a percentage of the entire debt that you had when you came to us, we're only charging you a percentage of the amount that we've actually reduced your debt by, which I think is much more fair. Yeah.
Well, that makes much more sense too, I think. Yeah.
Right. So then you know that we're just as motivated to reduce your debt as you are, because it directly correlates to the amount that we're being compensated.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that seems to be a much better process, after hearing what you talked about these big companies and how their fees are structured and everything. Yeah, I mean, it just makes much more sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if while you're in settlement negotiations with a creditor, say if you went through one of these big companies, that doesn't prevent that business from still suing you. And if that happens, this national debt consolidation company or whoever they may be, they're not lawyers, so they can't help you with that end of it, which you obviously could if that were to happen to somebody.
Right. And I think that's one of the major problems with these companies is that they take money from you, they put it into a trust account, they wait until there's enough to settle an account. If you have 10 accounts, as they're being settled, the ones at the end of the line now have been waiting a really, really long time, and eventually they're going to sue you. And once they do sue you, they handle it in a number of different ways, these companies. Some of them will basically give you paperwork for you to be your own attorney, and they'll kind of just guide you down that path. Some of them will have an attorney on staff that can give you advice, but can't actually be your attorney. Or other ones will have other attorneys that aren't really part of their company, but they'll basically refer you to an attorney to handle that. And then the final way they normally do it is they'll just say, whatever we agreed to with your contract, we'll take this account out of the contract, give you your money back that you paid us towards this file, and you can go handle it on your own because we're not a law firm and we can't handle a lawsuit. So those are the things you run into when ultimately what normally happens is a long time goes by and you get sued by one of these creditors.
Interesting. Yeah, so it just makes, to me, after hearing all that, it just seems like an obvious choice that because debt issues, at some point, they get bad enough, they're going to turn into legal issues. And if you're going to go to someone to try to settle it probably should be an attorney, just in case other legal issues come up. So, that's great to know. So why don't you tell us and tell the listeners, how the process works, I'm someone in debt and I'm either calling you or I've emailed you and you're calling me, or however it works. I'm calling you, we're talking for the first time. So what should I expect from that very first phone call through the end of the process? What am I going to have to do, to help you help me?
Sure. Yep. It's a very, very simple process. It's very streamlined and very efficient, which is what keeps basically our fees down so low. So basically when you call in, you would talk to somebody like myself and you would have a consultation. And if we've all agreed that we can help you, then I would ask a few quick questions. And then I would send you a fee agreement via email, which you would just click the link. It opens a PDF. You review the fee agreement, and if it's looks good to you, then you just sign it by typing your name, hitting send, and it goes right back to us and goes right back to you. And then you'll also get another email where you will be able to log into an online portal with a username and password of your choosing, and that's where you can make payments, get updates, view documents, all kinds of things online, 24 hours a day, and it's a very secure portal for you to use to kind of communicate with the law firm. Once that's all set up, within 48 hours, you'll actually get a call from us to ask you if you have any other questions. So we kind of like to have that, what we call a 48-hour call, where we'll give you a call to say, hey, did you get everything? Did you have any other questions for us? If not, great. And then we get 3 calls. You get 3 calls. We call them, as simple as 1, 2, 3. So the first call is going to be from a liaison that's going to give you a call. Say hello. Say, I'm your liaison. Tell you that we've sent out your answer or that we've reached out to the creditor, kind of give you some time frames, reiterate, what we're doing for you, make sure that all of your expectations are clear for us and that the parameters are set. And then we'll just kind of start working on your file. The second call, after we've reached out to the creditor, you'll be called back and told what the results were, and then you can confirm that still sounds good and that you're willing to move forward with that. And then the third call will be where we've actually got it in writing, and we're going to go over it with you in writing. We'll share it with you online, go over it with you in writing to make sure you know where, when, and how to make your payments and any other important pieces of information. And then ultimately we'd send you something in writing with a closing packet, we call it, where we would thank you for choosing us and also provide you with any paperwork for your file. And that's the whole process.
Sounds pretty straightforward. It's simple, and seems like there's a high level of contact on your end, which I'm sure makes your clients feel comfortable knowing that you guys are actually working on their case. Sometimes firms get big and you don't hear from them, whether it's debt or any other legal issue. So sometimes you don't hear for a long time from your attorney. So no, that would make me feel very comfortable, and I'm sure it would make most people not be apprehensive about giving you a call and wondering how things are actually going to work. So now, if I'm someone, if I'm in debt and I don't think I can afford to ever pay it off, like you mentioned before, it was $100,000, and sometimes people can just get into a mindset where they're like, I'm just never going to be able to pay this off, so why should I bother? I'm just going to ignore the problem. So, tell us why somebody in that situation should not ignore the problem. What's going to happen to them if they do?
Sure. Yep. I always say the 5 most dangerous words that you can say in life, or maybe it will go away, right? That's the 5 most dangerous words you can say. You might be talking about a noise that you heard in your car. You might be talking about a pain that you were having, or you might be talking about a debt, right? Because they don't go away, and actually, if anything, they get worse, right? So basically, if you don't pay your debt, then you get sued. Once you get sued, now they take a judgment against you. Now there's a judgment. And then really what's happening is your leverage to negotiate with a creditor is diminishing as time goes on. So once they have a judgment against you and they're either garnishing your wages, your bank account's frozen, they have a lien on your house, like your ability to negotiate with them is really low because now they can just take money out of your bank account. They can just take money right from your paycheck. So why do they even want to work with you at that point?
Sure. Yeah.
Why do they even want to work with you? And in New York State, interest accrues at 9% on a judgment. So you can imagine how that, every 6 or 7 years, that debt that you've accumulated is doubling. And even if we're able to negotiate it to 50% after 4 or 5 years, 6 years, that 50% is really just getting it right back down to what it was. It's not really, it's not negotiating down the principal, the original principal, I should say. So, and interest is interest, right? They're allowed at interest just like anyone else is, 9%.
Sure.
So that's a good reason not to avoid it or to, and also I think too, if you did have any defenses or if you did have any kind of reasons why you might not should or shouldn't have to pay the debt, whatever it be, identity theft or, something like that, it's much, much harder to bring those defenses or impossible really later if you just ignore things.
Okay. And you mentioned judgments. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they can last, I believe in New York, is it 20 years?
Yeah, they can last for 20 years. Yep.
And then can they also then can they be renewed? Can the problem last longer than 20?
Well, it could go indefinitely, honestly, because every time they garnish your wages or freeze your bank account and take money from it, it actually renews it again for another 20 years.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah. Okay. So even if you think that you're in too much in debt and you can't pay it off, don't ignore it. Just call an attorney, call you guys, and like you said before, you haven't ever met anybody that you couldn't help in one way or another. So don't think that you can't afford to pay it off. Call, find out what the possibilities are, because like you were just mentioning, if you ignore it, that they could turn into a lifelong problem that you'll just never get out from underneath of.
True.
Essentially.
Yep.
Okay.
That's absolutely correct.
All right. Okay. Well, I'd like to end on a personal note. I'd like you, if you would, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, as far as how long you've been practicing law and why you chose this area of law. It's a very niche area. What drew you to this area of law?
Sure, yeah. I've been practicing since 2002. I'm a graduate of Syracuse College of Law, and I started off as more of a real estate corporate type attorney, and then I kind of got drawn into suing debt collectors for harassing people, under the FDCPA. And then I noticed that, over the years, less and less people were being harassed by debt collectors. That's probably hard to imagine, but it did actually happen, probably because we were suing so many of them. And then I realized that, there's people out there that need help that aren't being harassed per se, that don't have claims under the FDCPA, but simply are just in debt and need somebody to help them make a bad situation bearable. Right, that's what they need. So because it's very difficult to talk to these collectors, and they're very, very, very pushy, very condescending. They can just be very, very difficult to deal with, and sometimes it's nice, honestly, just to have somebody else deal with it for you, because there's a very emotional connection to debt. Right, people have a very emotional connection to debt. So even if you're the best debt settlement person in the entire world, you might not actually want to settle your own debt. Right, so sometimes it's nice to be able to just to not have that pressure, anxiety, and feeling with it. Just know that you've given it to somebody else, and they're going to handle it for you, and it's being taken care of. So, I definitely think that there's an intrinsic value to what we do, which is really great, and I definitely think that our firm is very committed and compassionate to helping the whole person. We really like to help the whole person, and a lot of that has to do with not only alleviating the legal issues that they're having, but also just the stress that they're feeling. And, so many times people say, I'm going to sleep better tonight because they were just so worried, and I think it's really rewarding for us to know that we're helping people feel less stress in this world, because stress is such a big thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And debt issues, I can only imagine, just financial issues in general, but I mean, when you add crippling debt on top of that, or even if it's not crippling, it's the amount of stress, it can affect your sleeping and then eventually your health and depression and things like that. So yeah, definitely the easier you can make it, and reduce the stress of your clients, I'm sure it just goes a long way. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's, if you're listening and you or someone is struggling with debt issues, I urge you to call the law offices of Graham and Borgese. You can call 888-668-9071 or visit grahamborgese.com. I want to thank you again for joining us today, Kris, and giving us some insight on your area of law and how your firm helps consumers. It was a pleasure talking with you, and you have a great day.
Great. Thank you. You too.